Trey Lance met the media at rookie camp today. Let's listen to what he said.
At North Dakota State, I wore gloves actually in high school when I played quarterback. And it was, half the weather, half me having to change footballs, when we got to playoffs and things like that, just weird rules in Minnesota with sponsorships and things. North Dakota State, your freshman year, your first year on campus, whether you're a fifth-year grad transfer or whatever it is, your first year on campus, you're not allowed to wear sleeves, no leggings, so you're out there suffering, practicing in blizzards and everything like that, and it's just the way it is. If you try to come out in sleeves, the seniors will definitely rip your sleeves off.
All right, John, before we talk about what Trey Lance said, let's remind the people, subscribe to this channel, like this video, we appreciate it.
We also have a podcast below in the description. I need you to check that out and subscribe as well.
And check out wineaccess.com/ham, 20% off.
Yep, wineaccess.com/ham. Send a gift to someone you love, care about, or even like right now.
We love when a player gets drafted from Alabama because you know what his parents were about, right? If we use the program to try and tell us the history of somebody. You know what kind of program they were in. We know what kind of program North Dakota State's in. But you got a guy, we always talk about West Coast quarterbacks playing in cold weather. I mean, you're getting a Trey Lance that not only came from a tough high school environment based on weather, but definitely came from a college football program that teaches guys a little humility.
Yeah, I think you're getting the best of both worlds, because I think anytime you get a guy from Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, they clearly have an outrageous standard, right, to play there. Even the guys that don't make it, they excelled when they were drafted high at those programs, which is really hard to do. So I think sometimes they're just not good enough. But when you look at the history of the league, especially the quarterback position, and definitely the last 20 years, a lot of guys have come from smaller schools, right? I mean, Eli, Phillip Rivers, Big Ben, to obviously just the last several years.
Garoppolo.
Derek Carr is going to have a 15-year career from Fresno State. I do think you want to isolate, if we really look like those programs were successful with those guys, and he goes to a smaller program. I mean, they're not even Division I, but they kind of are the Alabama of that division. And when you hear stuff like this, it's still got this feel of like, it's kind of unique, I mean, it's freezing cold there, right? I mean, you go to Michigan, like Tom Brady was allowed to wear sweatshirts, right? So I do think they're like holding this crazy high standard, but it goes unnoticed. Like if Trey Lance never said this, no one would have any clue what's going on there unless you like live in that community, right? If this was an Ohio State thing, I do think it would be more universally talked about, like, oh, that Ohio State, you can't wear long sleeves your freshman year, or wherever. It would just be kind of a national story that most football fans would have heard of over the years. I think it's cool / like it also shows like he's coming humble beginnings relative to like he's going to get in his huddle. Trent Williams went to Oklahoma, right? I mean, it's just like that's the first guy he's going to look at. Trent Williams when Alex Mack has been a center on a Super Bowl team. So it's just all the guys that he's going to play with, Deebo Samuel started in a Super Bowl. Mostert started in a Super Bowl. Like he's coming from, it's a pretty big jump up for him, just looking around. And,
George Kittle, forget about what he's done in the NFL, went to Iowa. I mean, that's a blue blood Big Ten football program, right?
100%. So he's a very, very unique story, right? I just think Carson was there for 5 years, right? He was in the program. Now, he didn't only played a couple, but he was just this guy is kind of in and out of the small program. That's what also is just kind of unprecedented, right? In modern times.
Yeah, I mean, in and out as much as a football player can be, right? In and out is still 3 years in a program.
Yeah, but part of it is Corona wiped out a season.
For sure.
So it's like, and he redshirted. So it's like he's only played one season. Typically, even if you come from a smaller school, wouldn't you say a smaller school kid is more likely to be a several-year starter?
At least 4 years, right? Or a 4-year that they're there for 4 years usually, Yeah,
I mean, Wentz ended up going 2, but he was in the program for 5.
Right.
Easton Stick started, and he mentions like, where'd you guys hear this from Easton? Well, Easton was this 4-year starter there, ended up getting him in the 5th round. So it's just what makes Trey Lance to me so intriguing is the unknown. We know nothing really about him beside the positive things we've heard from NFL people. Clearly, you could just the highlights you and I have shown on some of these videos, and you just can YouTube him. But it's another thing to experience him now in a Niner uniform. Like, this is pretty real, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think partly the people that we've talked to, the stuff that they believe about how smart he is, that's a real thing. Like, they believe he's very bright. But when you don't really know somebody, you use things like the story he just told to try and build a little bit more of a background to understand who they are, where they come from, what they're about, what they've been through. Like a great example.
That's my point. Like, I think that nugget kind of humanizes the whole situation, where even if he had come from Ohio State, it just resonates more. Like, damn, North Dakota's kind of a cool. Like, I'm more intrigued by North Dakota State just hearing that comment than I was 5 minutes ago before I even knew.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. That's the kind of thing a coach might try, and it might fail in the wrong program, right? With the wrong coach, with the wrong culture. But you heard what he said. If you walk out to practice with sleeves on as a first-year player, and you're not supposed to be wearing sleeves, he didn't say the coach yells at you and you have to go back to the locker room. He said the players rip your sleeves off. Like, this is a place where culture has been long established, and it's the players that are in charge of maintaining that culture. And I think that, I think that's the healthiest program to come from. Like, at Alabama, there's no question who's in charge. But you and I have talked about this a lot. When you watch one of their bowl games and you see I guess you wouldn't have seen you see CeeDee Lamb, you see Amari Cooper, you see all these former guys back on the sideline. Like, part of what that tells you is, yes, Saban sets the tone, but the players are very, very invested in maintaining culture. So that what does that mean? Well, it means you have a lot of personal accountability in your locker room, which is a big deal, especially if you're a rookie walking in. Is he acting like the starter? No. But we all know what the situation is, right? And so it's a fine line for a guy like him to walk. It's different than like Zach Wilson walking into his locker room. Like, there's no doubt who's starting week 1 there. Here, does he have to earn it? Yeah, but it's different than what Trey Lance has to earn, I think. Same with Trevor Lawrence. So it's a fine line for him to walk. So what I see is a guy who knows how to be a leader, knows how to be a starting quarterback, but also knows how to be a part of the larger, right? Because that's part of what North Dakota State taught you, how to be a part of the larger group, which I think is always like when we see Brady with his teammates, and you've said this before about like Brady at the fight the other day when he had some guys with him. Like, part of the Brady leadership is, yes, he's the quarterback, yes, he's the number one, yes, he's the alpha, yes, he's all of those things, but he's also one of the guys. And that's a hard balance to strike. And I think the program he came from, like, one of their qualities is they teach that.
I think the most fascinating part about the 5 rookie quarterbacks who are drafted in the top 15, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson kind of just get thrown into the fire. It's this weird balance of, like, earning everyone's respect, but, like, also getting told by the coaches, like, you got to take it.
It's given, but it's also kind of given.
But there are 3 guys, and Trey Lance, unlike Mac Jones and Justin Fields, who do walk in with a little cachet, right? Alabama, Ohio State. All 3 are kind of walking this fine line of, I haven't been told I'm the starter. I'm actually not the starter right now. I'm being told it's the opposite. I got to earn the job. I want to impress my teammates, but I can't step on anyone's toes. But I also want to prove that I'm an alpha. But you got to be a beta at certain times, but you got to walk this fine line. It is not an easy. I just watch all 3 of those guys, and they're going to be prominent, obviously, with the Patriots and the Bears, and we're going to see a lot of them. You and I live and die with everything Trey Lance says, so it's hard. Like, I don't envy those 3 guys' positions at a young age. I didn't have that in the bag. No. Most humans don't.
Most people don't.
Most quarterbacks don't. So it's going to be it's just fascinating to watch them kind of navigate those circles, because ultimately, all 3, right? Sit next to Andy Dalton, sit next to Cam Newton, sit next to Jimmy Garoppolo, who even Andy Dalton, say what you want. Like, he's won a ton of games in the NFL. Cam Newton and Jimmy have led teams to Super Bowls. Cam did. I mean, Jimmy was a part of a Super Bowl team.
Yep.
I don't know if you'd consider led, but
he
was a quarterback for a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Started for a Super Bowl.
Yep.
He's like, I got 2 rings too. Back up.
Absolutely. Those experiences are something. Like, you ran through that tunnel.